Hello, everyone. This is Eric Wade, bringing you the asynchronous version of engaging students through citizen science. Um, Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what is citizen science and why is it important. We'll talk about how to integrate it across the curriculum, some getting started steps, some kind of resources to help you get started, and then just a page full of citizen science websites that are ready to go. You can start tomorrow if you were so inclined. So let's start with what is citizen science. It's actually, I think, a little different than most people kind of think. I think there's a kind of a perception that it is just go outside and collect data, right, and put it on some app, and then that app like it lives in the ether, and scientists look at it. But citizen science can be a lot more than that too. It can be it's not just collecting data. That's a big part of it. You go outside with your application on your phone or on your tablet, and you take a picture of a cloud or something, and you upload it onto a website, and a climatologist or a meteorologist looks at that and uses that data that you collected to help make decisions or form conclusions. But it's also it's other. There's more to it than just that. You can actually help analyze and interpret data that's collected from other people. Um, there's a really great citizen science program on Zooniverse that you're looking at pictures of stars and pictures of asteroids and comets and things moving across the lands across space, and your job is to help scientists identify what those are. There's another. I played a great game the other day that was all about Alzheimer's research, and basically you were just trying to find whether or not this blood vessel was blocked or not. You could also go a step further than that. You can create your own project. If you have something on your school that you want to kind of investigate the impacts of, you can develop your own citizen science project at your school and have your students gather data for you, and then students analyze that data. And you can work with a scientist or not. Really, kind of depends on how comfortable you are and where your expertise lie. And then you develop your questions, you gather your data, and then you draw some sort of conclusion. An example of this is something that I've done in the past where we had invasive burning bushes on the property of the school that I was working at, and we worked as a group a group of students to develop a question about whether or not these are actually going to be detrimental to the local environment, for other species that live in the area. We did our research and drew conclusions and presented our findings to the principal of the school, and made a real change. So it doesn't have to be as simple, or it can be as simple as just going out and collecting data and practicing those steps. That's a fantastic way to be a citizen science, but there is a lot more to it than just that. But why is it important? And even if you're not a science teacher, I've always been of the philosophy as a science teacher that I want to integrate as much of the other curriculums of the other subjects into my science class as I possibly can. That's just how my brain works. But we can improve science literacy in all of the classes as well. It doesn't have to be just STEM or STEAM or whatever you want to call it, where you're integrating writing and reading into science class. Math skills are obviously a big part of that, but also social studies and history concepts. We put all that stuff into science, but there's no reason that science can't be in the other subjects as well. And doing a citizen science, whether you're doing it through a reading program or a social studies program, helps improve that scientific literacy, which is super important. I mean, there's been studies that show people who participate in citizen science have a better understanding of scientific content, and specifically those scientific skills. That's really important. Is how do you tell if something is a reliable conclusion or not, right? Those skills. What were the research skills that went into this? And understanding those is really important to be able to draw your own conclusions of things. But it can also help the scientists in their efficiency, right? If they have so much data that there's absolutely no way that they can go through all of these data points in a reasonable amount of time, they're either going to have to hire people to help them, which increase their costs, or they can kind of gamify it a little bit and make it so that put that data out there for other people to look at, and then they can just kind of go through it really, really quickly and make sure and just kind of verify that you were correct. Also, you can do that with algorithms as well, which is really kind of a neat step forward. But you can also help locally and globally, right? The results from these, the more data points that a scientist has, the more accurate their conclusion can be, the more evidence that will support their conclusion, which can have a huge effect not only locally on environmental decisions, laws and legislation that's being passed, environmental sustainability, but also globally. How does this thing that's happening on the West Coast affect us here on the East Coast? Or how does this thing, happening all the way on the East Coast affect what's going on in Europe? So there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of ways that citizen science helps locally. That's kind of the one we always kind of grasp at. But what about clouds or precipitation types? Those are two very simple to use citizen science apps that have a global impact. And again, there kind of feeds into this next idea of that being a citizen science helps scientists gather data all around the world, which again, I'll use the cloud example. Understanding weather patterns is so important to understand climate change. So being able to have data about what type of clouds you have at your house right now helps to drive the data, which helps provide evidence for scientists to make more reliable conclusions. So let's move on here to looking at this across the curriculum. So citizen science, by its name, kind of denotes that it's really only good for a science class, which could absolutely be further from the truth. It has connections across the curriculum, across all subject areas through a school, which is, you could kind of look at this one of a couple of different ways. If your science program really isn't interested in doing citizen science, but you are as a social studies teacher or an ELA teacher or something like that, you can absolutely bring this into your class, just in come at it from a different set of skills, right? So if you're a literacy or working with ELA, you're looking at paraphrasing, writing summaries, vocabulary building, research skills, and exposure to multiple types of text. Here's an example of a species card that I've used in the past for invasive species research that I was doing once upon a time. And, this is informational text. This isn't text. This isn't reading to learn to read. This is reading to learn and to be able to look at facts and pieces of data to be able to draw conclusions from it. That's absolutely an ELA skill. Communication. How do you communicate the conclusions that you've found, right? And how do you do that effectively and in a clear way that everybody can understand what you're talking about? So you can absolutely come at this from a literacy perspective or a social studies perspective and just do citizen science in your class outside of a science class. Or if the opportunity exists to make it a bigger piece, a bigger project, and it's cross-curricular. So while the math teacher is talking about data and the ELA teacher can be talking about research, paraphrasing or writing summaries or understanding multiple texts, and the social studies teacher can be working on research skills, the science teacher can be looking at all of those pieces together as a whole citizen science program. So there's lots of ways that you could go about organizing this. So there are some ways in literacy that you can kind of integrate this in. Math, we've got obviously how to collect reliable data is such an important piece of this. And then knowing how to analyze it, the math pieces of that, measures of central tendency, looking for patterns, computational thinking, using logic to answer questions. Again, how do you communicate that graphically? The size of math, absolutely a math skill. Measuring, again, so important when it comes to citizen science. You need to make sure that everything is measured accurately. So again, a science, a math concept that works really well for this. But one of the perks of this is you always, I taught math for a very long time. And one of the things that I always got from students is, how am I going to use this? Why am I learning this? What am I going to do with this? What this does is it gives a little bit of authenticity to that math. You can say, yeah, You may never use algebra again in your life in terms of solving for X, but you're going to use that logical sequential thinking, which is called computational thinking, to help analyze problems and build models later on in your life. Um, yeah, you may not know, you may not use mean, median, and mode on a regular basis, but knowing how to analyze that data and knowing what those things are, again, is a very important skill to be able to understand later in your life. Next, we have social studies. Again, looking at text features, understanding how to read material in terms of like how it's organized. So understanding index, maps, photos, charts, timelines, and how that helps the narrative of the piece of informational text that they're looking at. Using evidence, which is a science one as well, but also fits into social studies to be able to verify your evidence, but also to be able to support that claim with that evidence. Looking at, if you're coming up with a project on your own, or you're trying to decide which citizen science existing project you want to contribute to, looking out at the world of current events, what's already happening in your area or your state or your country or globally that you feel passionate about, that you can use citizen science to make a difference in in that problem or in that issue that might be occurring. GIS through geography. I mean, the latitude longitude piece of this is super important. You can't, if you're going onto a citizen science app, most phones and tablets will automatically fill in your current location, but any of the web-based ones might need you to actually physically put a latitude and longitude in there, especially if you go, like for instance, I used to go to do invasive species research with another school, and we would be away from school when we gathered our data on paper and pencil, and when we return back to school and enter that data onto a website, we needed the latitude longitude of where we were so that we could input that in, because we weren't in the same place. So we needed that information, and again, that's a piece that comes from social studies classroom. Informational text, again, it's kind of all across here. Understanding how to read it is very, very important. And then also looking at economics and civics, right? How does science affect the community in terms of civic engagement, but also how does it affect a community in terms of economics? If you're a coastal community and you're looking at sea level rise, that has a huge economic impact, not only on the area that you live in, but also in the inland areas that rely on the coast for goods and services. So that's another piece of the social studies aspect, is it's not just gathering data, right, or analyzing data. It's looking at what is the impact of this at a global scale or a local scale or even a statewide scale to whatever your issue is that you're researching. And then lastly, in my school we call them allied arts, but the schools call them specials or whatever. But it's these art and health technology phys ed pieces. How does citizen science working with that? So in the art idea, I am very art is something that's very foreign to me. I don't really understand contrasting colors and things like that. So having somebody who is familiar with that, whose profession is to work with art and understand that really well, can be very helpful for students to be able to look at how colors work together, how images and text fit well on a page, whether it is digitally or like the old trifold style. Understanding how that works is really, really important. And an art teacher can absolutely help with that. If you're coming out from a health aspect, you're looking at specific pieces of science that you're gathering data for. So then looking at that and thinking about how does that impact human people, like a human body, like health, access to food, things like that. How does that impact, how does the changing world, right, that you might be gathering data about, how does that have an effect on the human body? For phys ed, students absolutely need to be able to be able to walk and have dexterity and body awareness to gather data. I've gathered invasive species data before in rivers and ponds, and never had a kid fall in, but we've had some close ones. It was just because they just didn't have that body awareness. And so phys ed can absolutely feed into this in that way. SEL, how does, it helps you develop some empathy for the people who are actually experiencing these things. The idea of, sea level rise, for instance, there are islands who are just going to disappear. How do you build that empathy for somebody who you've never met, who you've never going to see in a place you've never visited, right? So that SEL can help build that empathy, and then empathy can be used for lots of different scenarios. Then there's the technology, right? Coding is such a fantastic and powerful tool. And for science, modeling is a very, very, very important piece of science. So citizen science, again, that modeling piece can be a big part of that. How do you build a model that will show what will happen over X number of years or whatever it might be? If you're talking about seed spread, if you get the average distance that a seed will spread when a bird eats it and drops the seed out when it poops somewhere else, and you look at the general spread of that, you can build a model to kind of predict what might happen based on the number of berries that bush might produce or something like that. And then lastly, music. How many times I've tried to explain to students in the past when we're doing observations to not just observe with your eyeballs, but to also use your other senses as well. They always struggle with the listening piece, right? Which is, that's normal anyway, but they always struggle to listen to what's going on around them. If you're doing any sort of bird inventory, right? If you're looking at citizen science that has anything to do with birds and bird calls, but you may not actually see the bird, but every bird call, it belongs to a bird. So to understand what that sound is and to be able to recognize it when you hear it again, that's a really important skill that a music teacher can help students with. Let's get started on looking at how we can get started being a citizen scientist, right? We spent some time, we talked about how to get these, how to incorporate it across the curriculum, how to integrate it across multiple subject areas. So let's talk about how we get started. So first thing you can do is you can earn a badge. The SciStarter, which is this link right here, will take you to this page. And on this page is a little badge program. It's kind of asynchronous, do it at your own pace, and can really help you get started on doing something small, right? Already joining an existing citizen science program and adding data. And once you understand how to do this, then you can complete it with your students, or you have your students complete it. Either way is fine. But this is a great place to start because it really gives you an idea of what it is that you're doing, how you think about gathering data. Practice, it's one of the best parts, is number 3 here. You get to do Project Squirrel and Stall Catchers, which is the Alzheimer's research game. So, there's some opportunity to practice. And then, it really focuses on the website SciStarter, which if you've never been to SciStarter, it's really great. I'll take you real quick. It's a really fantastic place to find citizen science programs that already exist that you can then participate in. Just do a keyword or topic, and it will give you all sorts of different already moving forward, already doing citizen science programs that exist that you can just join in and add data to. So start here, right? It's just a basic beginning step. Great place to start thinking about, how do I start this off? Another way to do this, another way to another resource to help with this is this link right here, which will take you to the California Academy of Sciences page. And on this page is a beginning to end activity 1 to activity 5 or 6, 7, lesson plan on doing a citizen science program in your class. It is a fantastic way to start. So you can already see it's using SciStarter right there and Zooniverse. It gets you started on how to begin, right? What do you do next with your students, right? It's literally a lesson plan to walk you through how to get started being a citizen science. It's a fantastic resource. I like it. I really found it to be very, very helpful. And really can get you started on moving citizen science into your classroom. One of the most important pieces of this is kids are going to be working in groups unless you have enough opportunity. There's enough opportunity in your area for kids to work individually. But if you're going to work in groups, then you want to make sure that everybody has a job, right? And finding jobs for this, if you've never done before, can be a bit of a challenge. So this link takes you to this page right here, which is actually a huge PDF, again, from the California Academy of Sciences. And this has a really great kind of assigned jobs kind of cheat sheet to get you started on this. It's a great way to just kind of get kids busy, give them a purpose so that they're not messing things up or getting into trouble. And then the last one here, this is really an important piece of this. So I'll just take a second and kind of pause to really concentrate on this. each of the citizen scientist sites that you would find, almost every single one that exists, requires you to have some sort of login or to give them your email address. Now, student privacy is obviously a really important piece of this, and there's really no list that exists out in the world. I've looked as hard as I possibly can for this, that really goes through and shows which ones of these citizen scientist programs, websites and apps do a great job of protecting privacy, and which ones are selling email addresses, to Amazon or whatever. So understanding the privacy piece of this is really, really important. So one way around this is, and you can kind of decide what works best for your school based on your kind of policies around student privacy and email addresses. You can easily just make one account and be able to allow students to just enter their data into that account kind of when they whatever system you set up to get them to do that, right? You don't have to, every student doesn't have to have their own account to be able to do this. You can just have one as a class. That's what I've done in the past. I don't let students create their own citizen science apps or their logins on their own. I don't let them. I have one login, and I might go and log in on 2 or 3 different computers and have those up at the front, and students can come up when they're ready and add their data in, and then go back to their seat and do whatever it is that I have planned for them to do next. It eliminates that idea of student privacy. I don't have to worry about it. I found that I can log in with my credentials onto the same site on multiple computers without any sort of weirdness. It's one shutting off, one turning on. Like had found that's never really been a problem. But it is something really important to consider is student privacy. So how you set that up is really kind of dependent upon the school that you work in. But just keep that in mind because that was really important. So then you've started it, you've done it, you're like, whew, that was really fun. I really liked it. The kids really liked it. It's so authentic. What can I do next? Well, there's a couple things you can do next. You can start your own, right? We talked about it earlier. You can start your own citizen science project. Look at your area around you and decide if if there's something that requires students to gather data and draw conclusions, right? Ask good questions, things like that. If you don't in your area, then branch out a little bit. Local lake associations are constantly doing, water monitoring or loon count, bird inventories, any of those things. They're always doing stuff like that. So connecting with your local lake or environmental program, soil and water districts, humane extension offices. These people all have access to things outside of what we might find in a public school, and that might be able to help you to find a citizen science piece that you can develop, right? That you can develop with your students that will fit into a goal that they have around sustainability or looking at the environment or looking at environmental impact or anything, or just even doing counts, right? That's a big piece of it, or looking for invasive species. And then the other thing you can do with this is, if you already have done a citizen science project and you want to extend it just a little bit further, the experts and the scientists who do these things love to talk about their projects. I've had lots of people in invasive species research come in and speak to my students about the impact that invasives have. A lot of times, too, it'll connect up to the citizen science program that you're doing, and then you really have that great connection between this, right? Like it's not just like, it's because it is rather abstract if you think about it. Students are uploading data onto the internet, assuming that it goes to a scientist, but to actually have the scientists come back and say, yeah, this is what I do with the data that you collected. Thank you so much. Keep doing such a great job. So that's an easy extension. That's really not super challenging. And again, scientists like in the internet age, we can Zoom or Google Meet with people pretty readily. So let's look at some resources. We'll finish up with these. What I have here is a full page of kind of vetted citizen science websites and projects that you can join right now if you're interested. Some of them are web-based, some of them are app-based. You kind of have to look and see which one works the best. Most of these, like I said, I've vetted all of these. They're all really fantastic. I will say just a couple little things about some of these. So for instance, Zooniverse is a really great citizen science app. It's but not only for gathering data, but also for analyzing data. They have some really fun things you can do when it comes to looking at space stuff, especially like lots of really great, like, is this a comet or not a comet? But you do have to pay attention to the expiration dates. They do expire, and there's no sense in looking at and analyzing data for something that's already expired. You can do it for practice, I suppose, but it doesn't feel very authentic for something that's like, oh yeah, that already happened, and I can't do anything else with that. One of my favorites is IMAPS invasives. I'm an invasive species guy myself. I've spent a lot of most of my professional career working with invasives in my science classes. IMAPS invasives is great. It actually there used to be a website and a program. Actually, there's a full program through the Gulf of Maine Research Institute called Vital Signs, and Vital Signs was kind of this precursor to this IMAP invasive. In fact, it kind of became this. But what I've done here is I put on this link here that takes you to the species cards that Vital Signs used back in the day. So one of the things that I don't like about IMAPS invasives is that the references that they have, the resources that they have to help you identify things is limited and not very good. It's not bad, but it's not great. So these are species cards that were developed specifically for Vital Signs, as you can see through here. Vital Signs, that's another website, doesn't work anymore, through the GMRI. And these are amazing. They are really fantastic. They're succinct. They're to the point. They give exactly the data you need to be able to identify. The pictures are very clear. It's fantastic. So there's I had the link. The link will take you here. There's coastal, freshwater, and upland. Upland is all of the kind of plants, right, and animals that you might find on the shores, or not on the shores. Sorry, inland. Freshwater is freshwater, and coastal is coastal. So this is a fantastic resource. I stumbled across it, and I want to put it in here because it's really great in terms of simplicity for students. And you can print them off and laminate them. That's what I did. I have a whole book of them that I printed off and laminated so that I can give to students when we go out into the field and look at things. So these are all fantastic websites. They're all really great. There's everything from looking at ladybugs to focusing on the citizen science here in Maine, where they have things like heron counts and stuff like that. There's federal ones through citizenscience.gov. There's everything you can possibly imagine, butterflies and night skies. Like, it's really cloud stuff. Like, it's really quite amazing. So use these. They're a really great resource. I said I vetted all of them. They're all fantastic. And there's, like I said, they run from the gamut from relatively straightforward and simple. Project Squirrel is super easy, and we have a lot of squirrels. It's super easy to work through, super easy to find projects for, all the way up to like Nature's Notebook, which is, again, it's really fantastic, but it can be really specific. So you might have a harder time finding something that fits whatever you're doing. And that's it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, or you'd like to dive a little bit deeper in this, or you're interested in any sort of other technology integration, please feel free to reach out and email me anytime. Follow me on Twitter. Also, if you'd like to earn a contact hour for watching this PD, if you click here, it'll take you to a Google form. That Google form, just fill it out, and it's pretty straightforward. And when you hit submit at the bottom, it will not add new, it'll hit submit. When you hit submit, it'll give you a thank you message with a link to this certificate of completion, so you can earn a contact hour for watching the asynchronous version. Just put your name here, and then you can print it there. Thank you guys all so much, and I hope you have a great day.